It all started with a warning from the old man who lived next door. He was the kind of neighbor no one really talked to, always kept to himself, dressed in a tattered flannel shirt and old boots that seemed worn from decades of use. His skin was rough, covered in gray stubble, and his eyes carried an unsettling hollow gaze that made you wonder if he ever slept. One evening, as I was locking my front door, I noticed him watching me from his porch. I tried to ignore it, but he shuffled over with surprising speed, his boots scuffing against the cracked sidewalk. There was something urgent in his stride, and when he spoke, his voice was hoarse, like sandpaper on stone.
"You live alone now, don't you?"
He asked, his words raspy, the kind of voice that sounded like it hadn't been used in days. I nodded, a bit uneasy but polite. "Yeah, why?" He leaned in closer, his breath smelling strongly of cheap whiskey, and whispered,
"You better count your windows twice every night before bed. Make sure they're all locked. All of them. Twice."
His intensity caught me off guard, and I laughed awkwardly. "Okay. Why?" The old man didn't smile. His eyes narrowed as if to make sure I understood.
"Because if you don't, they'll come in. And trust me, you don't want that."
I watched him shuffle back to his house, a strange unease settling into my gut. "They'll come in?" What was that supposed to mean? Just the ramblings of a lonely old drunk, I thought. But something about the way he said it stayed with me. That night, as I got ready for bed, his words echoed in my mind. I found myself walking through the house, checking each window. First the one in my bedroom, then the kitchen, then the living room, and finally, the last one in the hallway. 5 windows in total. They were all shut, all locked. But his words stuck with me, so I checked them again, just like he'd said. Twice. The next few nights were uneventful, but the air in my house felt different. I noticed little things. A cool draft even when the windows were sealed, strange creaks at odd hours, and that nagging feeling you get when you're being watched. A week later, I was exhausted after a long day at work. I barely made it to bed and completely forgot to check the windows. Sometime after midnight, I was jolted awake by a soft tapping sound. At first, I thought it was rain, but then I remembered the night was clear. The tapping continued, louder now, rhythmic, almost insistent. My heart began to race as I strained to listen. It was coming from the hallway window, the last one I usually checked before bed. Fear coiled in my chest, but curiosity won out. I crept down the hallway, every step feeling heavier than the last. The tapping stopped just as I reached the window. Everything was still. I stood frozen, listening to the silence. The window was closed as it should be. But then I saw it, a handprint, smeared on the outside of the glass. Not mine, something bigger with long, spindly fingers. The shape was distorted, as if whatever left it didn't quite belong. My breath caught in my throat, and I stumbled back. The handprint lingered there, mocking me. The next morning, I rushed to the old man's house. I needed answers, but when I knocked, there was no response. One of the other neighbors mentioned that he had passed away 3 days ago, right around the time the tapping started. I went home shaken and began to notice more things. Cold spots in the house, strange shadows flickering just out of sight, and always that faint tapping at night, no matter how many times I checked the windows. I became obsessive. Every night I would count the windows. 5 windows twice, just as he had warned. Some nights the tapping would stop. Other nights it would grow louder, more frantic. One night it wasn't just the hallway window, it was all of them. The tapping started slow, then faster in an eerie rhythm, as if they were testing the locks, looking for a way in. I leapt out of bed, running from window to window, each one closed and locked, but the tapping continued. It surrounded me, filling the air with an inhuman urgency. I ran to the center of the living room, trying to catch my breath. That's when I saw it. A shadow, tall, impossibly thin, and moving slowly outside the windows. Its limbs were too long, its fingers dragging along the glass. I could see its face, twisted and shifting in the moonlight, its eyes hollow, hungry, like black pits that bore into me. The tapping stopped, and for a moment everything was still. Then the window creaked. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed with fear, before the figure faded back into the night. But I knew, deep down, it wasn't gone. The next morning, I moved out. I left everything behind, furniture, clothes, even the windows. I couldn't stay there anymore, but wherever I go, I count the windows. 5 of them, twice, every night, because I know if I forget again, they'll come in.
Stories may end, but the fear remains. Subscribe to uncover more secrets hidden in the darkness. Until we meet again in the world of nightmarish shadows.